now to
into a more functional action approach. Yeah, so that would be probably something, if you like. I go to Shadrach, yes. Of course, largely where I grew, there were quite deep natural systems. I mean, most of them were largely unmanaged, but they are, and they're very rich for that matter. But I think from that point in time, I loved the science of biology. That was really my core subject. I really loved it for sure. From high school, I think I went to the university, and largely I took the science core in conservation and basically in botany, zoology, but also education. So I was doing three things in one. When I was in my final year at the university, I think that's where my life started. And that's why I started seeing conservation science as a career. That was really a time for us because we were all in the field, we were all in the wilderness. Blending with European students and African students, I think we formed a really strong base for understanding conservation research. So that was an inspiration. And I think after that time, it never stopped. Then that's how I prepared myself into in conservation ecology and into sustainability, looking at different frames, having so many interests coming in, climate change coming in, community livelihoods coming in, looking at different biodiversity conservation resources coming in, looking at landscape approach coming in, looking at all frames you can think about, but putting the people at the center. When I came to Strathmore, I found a new life because I now could see how my science would contribute largely into the business of tourism. And I really found a niche. It was really crispy niche because driving conservation science, looking at the conservancy development was just coming up, and then looking at the sustainability frame on tourism support from wildlife conservation, wildlife management to the business of conservation. Then I really found a very big space actually, where my science could actually inform policy, could inform business practice, but also the actual conservation on the ground that makes sense to the local people. Deanship to me is a bigger service to students and staff. And I keep on reflecting on my life journey, and I've really tried to see what are some of the things that worked for me when I was a student and an upcoming student, a transforming student, to really a career person whom I am. I've tried to trace that journey into my students. How do we get to deliver the promise? How do we get, which partnership really make meaning? How do we mobilize partners to support students' growth? How do we create students to see the bigger picture of life beyond Strathmore University, beyond Kenya? Because, I mean, global citizenry is a very intentional process of building. Getting minds, getting talents, and working together to create the space for students, I think that's really the greatness of deanship. Some of the works I do largely is to build students on conservation research. And one of the areas like what we're doing here in Hellsgate is one of the project sites for my students. One of the unique areas in this country where we have Rupel's vulture breed, and it's the only place you'll find actually in the whole of this country. The student who is working on this particular project on conservation of Rupel's vulture in Hellsgate is actually a master's student. And I do this largely when I'm out of campus. I spend more of my time in the conservation areas working on these particular project sites. I see Strathmore University Center for Biodiversity Information Development as that space where we build the next scientists, either in conservation research, in climate change, in community development and livelihoods. Because Africa today, I mean, who is going to tell the story of African biodiversity? Who's going to tell the story of community involvement in biodiversity conservation and management? Who is going to build that kind of deep knowledge to create those model scenarios that you think about in climate change that's informing Africa development? I want to create that kind of space. I know where we can also harness the relevant collaborators to really build African researchers, strong researchers with the rigor that is expected and within the African context so that they understand. Because when you're developing a research concept in Africa, it should really be in line to the development needs in Africa. This is how I grew in my PhD life, mentored by other scholars I want to just create this space for the students at PhD level. So it's spinning the life and making the life of a PhD student. It's spinning the life and making the next researcher, so that when they are grown and are really fully formed researchers, then they should be able to take that home and build other more researchers that Africa needs. So that's really how I've envisioned this center to look like.